Today we are discussing ghosts. Are they real? What Ifa really teaches about ghostly encounters, hauntings, earthbound spirits, things like that. welcome, Masaju. Glad to have you join us as always. Everybody, welcome to you guys who are also showing up on IG. I can see you there. So let's go ahead and, like, guys, if you're watching, make sure you go ahead and type any comments, concerns, questions that you have in the chat window, and we will definitely get to them as we go along. Alafia. Greetings all. If you're watching the replay, guys, so you can definitely go ahead and tell us, what stood out to you. If you have any additional comments or concerns that we don't discuss here, please feel free to reach out and put those in the comment box on YouTube, because it will be available on YouTube afterwards, also on Spotify. Okay, greetings. Thank you. Thank you for joining our Hidden Beauty. Great to see everybody. Great to see everybody. This is a topic that I'm excited about. We're going to jump into the pre-episode survey as everybody joins and what you guys put out there on YouTube. So I asked about people having experiences with ghostly encounters or hauntings and things like that. And most of you all said that you did. Like 78% said that they had encountered some kind of haunting or ghostly presence in their lives. 11% were unsure, uncertain about that phenomenon being ghostly or haunting or something of that nature. And then another 11% of you all said that you had never experienced anything ghostly. So this definitely lets me know that there is a large number of people who have experienced these type of encounters, letting us know there's something to it. It's not just, stories or superstitions that a lot of times people like to say that these type of phenomena are. Do I personally believe that every time somebody has such an experience that it is a ghost or a haunting? No. However, these phenomena do exist, and they exist for a specific reason. It's not the gory, scary stuff that we see in the Halloween movies, or the what do you call it, the scary movies and things like that. So let's I already covered that. Let's dig into understanding earthbound spirits in Ifa specifically. Okay. So Ifa teaches that earthbound spirits are basically unsettled souls. So people who have transitioned from this life, but they're not quite settled in the next life. They're not elevated to what we consider to be the ancestral realm. Okay, so you're asking, is it Linnell? Are ghosts and spirits the same? Good question. So ghosts are spirits. However, all spirits are not ghosts, if that makes sense to you. So we have spirits on so many different ends of the spectrum, whereby you can definitely have ghosts, which are what we consider earthbound spirits, but you also have tiers. So you have people who are ancestors. When they transition, they go to the ancestral realm, and I'll get into that in a little bit as far as what that looks like. But you also have other types of spirits, which we call orishas in the Ifa tradition. They may be called other things in other, they are called other things in other traditions. You have so many different layers to that hierarchy. So it's ghosts are only one type of spirits. Greetings, my dear Samantha. Thank you for joining us. So that to answer that question. So one of the questions I got from you all beforehand was, why do some spirits become trapped or restless instead of just going to be with what we call the ancestors in Ifa? So this happens for a number of reasons. Spirits are what we call earthbound, and for the purpose of the live stream, I'm going to use ghosts or earthbound spirits interchangeably here, because that's what we basically think of them as: ghosts, apparitions, earthbound spirits, etc. So these are forces. These forces have stayed here due to a number of reasons. Likely because they have unfulfilled obligations that they feel like they need to meet. Maybe they were in the midst of doing something and they were taken suddenly, and so they're trying to figure it out. They're confused and they want to go ahead and complete that task, right? So unresolved other matters and things like that, especially when you're talking about somebody who died a very violent or sudden death at the hands of somebody else, who that individual who murdered them has not been caught or dealt with properly, and maybe that person's spirit is just restless until that phenomenon is settled. It can also happen due to improper or incomplete burial rites, especially in specific cases. Okay. This particularly happens, as I said, somebody dies really, really suddenly. That can leave their spirit in a space of shock, surprise, confusion, or frustration because they don't even know that they're gone sometimes. They weren't anticipating that. So somebody maybe died in like a sudden accident, a crash, and all of a sudden their life is gone, right? Definitely, as I said before, murder or any type of violent death that is just not considered to be like normal. So you're saying they're called Egungun. That is not correct. Egungun are ancestors. Most of the time we think about it as the masquerade, but you can say ancestors. So we're talking about earthbound spirits. These are the ones who have not ascended to the ancestral realm at this point. So we're making that distinction here. Okay, so it can also happen when these spirits are seeking retribution, as I said before, because of their death situations. Maybe they died in a state of torture, violence, severe emotional pain, etc. So that energy is stuck. It is trapped. It is also really common for this phenomenon to occur with individuals who are members of secret societies, okay? And their burial rites or ceremonies were not carried out properly because maybe their family didn't know that they had to have certain rites being done because they had made a contract while on earth that certain things would go down that way when they transition, and it didn't go down that way. So they become stuck energetic forces. Okay. So, how are earthbound spirits different from what we call honored ancestors? And somebody was saying that before, they're Egungun, which this is not the same concept. They're not the same forces. So, how are these forces different? I'm going to get to that question shortly. Let's see. Earthbound spirits are restless or unsettled, as I said before. They often cause challenges or even conflict for the people that they leave behind because they are unsettled, and there are some things that need to transpire for them to be okay and also for their family to be okay based on what happened in their lineage. Ancestors, on the other hand, are the spirits that have transitioned to the astral realm. And in Ifa and most other African traditions, there is absolutely a distinction made between the individuals who transition and they lived a good life, they lived to a ripe old age, they carried on the lineage either through biological children or caring for other people's children or what have you at some point in their destiny. Everybody who transitions does not automatically become an ancestor. I get that question quite a bit. What about, like this person died or are they already an ancestor? And that's just not the case all the time. You have to check on your ancestors. You should be checking on your ancestors. That's part of our duty as the living to see what's going on. Now, SSC, you were saying, would I be able to receive a consecrated shrine and not be initiated? Absolutely. That happens all the time, especially with people going through receiving like the hand of Ifa. They'll usually receive that first, especially in the diaspora. But it also happens quite often in Nigeria too. So they'll get the hand of an Ifa first and maybe work with that for a while, then transition to full-on initiation if that's their path. Or you're saying are all ghosts bad? That's a good question and something that I am going to answer. I wouldn't, here I'm going to just say they're not all bad in the sense that they're trying to hurt you or cause you harm. However, they do cause people harm. And I'm going to get to why in a little bit. So you're asking, is the pineal gland who manifests once is a, I don't know what this is. It's DNA. It's like a flawed design on these planets to easily manage just the sequence. Okay, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. If you care to explain, please do so. All right, so you're saying those are ancestors worship living in your spiritual vault. Not quite sure about that one either. Right, our ancestors are the ones who lived well and who transitioned, and they are now helping us from the other side. Whereas ghosts or earthbound spirits, they haven't transitioned properly, so they can't really help us because they're not in a good space. So you said so no ghost is of high elevation. Correct. It's not because they're still earthbound. They're still in this space, and even so, they're confused because they're not supposed to be here. When somebody transitions, they are supposed to transition to the ancestral realm if they've lived their life properly and met the criteria. And also, we do want to go ahead and do burial rites and rituals, in which I'm going to get deeper into in the next live stream. So about 2 weeks from now. But just to say that here, this is something that is standard in tradition. When somebody transitions, their family already knows we're going to do certain rites and rituals to ensure that the land accepts them and that they go to the right place and they're elevated so that they can help us. That's why we do what we do. It's a space of reciprocity. So what can I do to start to connect with my ancestors? So that's a deeper level question that I will get to a little bit here, but this episode is not full on about that. I do encourage you to check out some of the other live streams that we've done, because I did do that in depth about connecting with the ancestral forces. You said, how does signs of a ghost look like? We're going to get to that as well. What do they look like? Absolutely. Very good question. So does Ifa recognize the concept of a haunting, and how is that phenomenon particularly understood? So absolutely, Ifa recognizes that there are hauntings, which means that there are spiritual forces that remain on the earth. They lurk in certain spaces around people, and they wreak havoc. They cause harm. They're disturbed, so they disturb other people. Going back to the question before, like, are they all bad? They're not always doing what they do for bad reasons. Sometimes it's to get attention. Again, they're confused, they're lost, they're stuck. And so just they're going to do mischievous things sometimes. It happens. You said, how would I pray to the consecrated shrine without knowing all the prayers? And also, what is the appropriate price range? So that's another question that is not within the scope of what we are doing. I'm going to say this really quick to you with the consecrated shrine. When you receive one, you should be taught how to use it by whoever you get it from. So that would look like being given the proper incantations and all of those other dynamics. Price range, you're going to have to check specifically with the people that you're working with, okay? You're saying the bad juju. Okay. Thank you guys for all of your comments. You guys are really coming today. All right. So hauntings are not forms of entertainment, though, right? Asaju and I were having this conversation a couple of weeks ago, and he made a very profound statement that, this is actually disrespectful when we have these types of environments where people want to go to these haunted houses, even the scary movies and all of these things, because these spiritual forces are not to be made fun of. They're not in a good space. Because they're not in a good space, they're not going to make it easy for you to live and enjoy life, especially if their energy is stuck in a space where you dwell, right? So it's actually not something funny, and it's actually disrespectful to try to, go and, oh, I'm going to see this haunted house, or, even try to conjure up certain beings and things like that, or to make poke fun at them in any way, because especially if it's somebody from your own lineage, right? That's not good. It's not good for anybody's lineage, because what happens there is that's another soul that could have been helping them out, but they're not able to because they're lost, they're stuck, they're frustrated and confused. You're saying sorry for going off track, but I just wanted to double check with you as I value your wisdom. And I appreciate that. If you could send me a DM and we can have a little bit more discussion about that, okay? All right. So you're saying what I missed. I love all this stuff. Yes, we're just getting started, so definitely stay tuned. We're gonna get deeper into it. I love talking about this too. I grew up; it was a really big thing in my family. I don't like scary movies and stuff like that. Though I never have. But yes, so going back to what I was saying. Um, let's see. Unlike fear-based Western ghost stories, Ifa views earthbound spirits as unbalanced souls, as I said before. They need ritualistic support. They need help to ascend, to elevate, and get to the other side. This is not something that you just play around with. You just go and start messing with ghosts and stuff like that. You said, what did I say haunting was by Ifa? My bad, missed it. No problem. So a haunting is basically when that spirit that is stuck in a particular space rather, and it's wreaking havoc. It can wreak havoc on the land or a house or whatever type of dwelling. It can also wreak havoc on the individuals in that particular space. It can cause a lot of problems, like, psychic attacks and so many different things. So it's not something that you actually want. And you're welcome. Thank you so much, Antonio. You're asking here. Interesting question. So when I was a kid, I wanted a Ouija board so bad, and my mom actually got me one. Nothing bad ever happened. I let my cousin borrow it. Never seen it again. We're gonna get into the Ouija boards. We're gonna get into that conversation because you guys asked about it before. Oh, Samantha, I missed your question. You said, will the ghosts have to stay on Earth until they get transition? How will they get transition if no one helps them? That's a good question. I think for the most part, yes. I will, Adissa, if you are there, could you answer this question for me? Like, are they able to ascend if nobody helps them to transition and go to that next level? Thank you for that question. Very interesting. You're saying, were you allowed to get a Ouija board? So I'm going to talk about Ouija boards and, what Ifa says about them, and even so my take on them. We'll talk about that. I don't want to get too ahead of myself at this point. So going back to the questions that you guys asked beforehand, are earthbound spirits and spirit guides the same thing? So earthbound spirits are those unsettled forces, as I talked about before. They dwell in the earthly realm. Spirit guides, it really depends on what you mean by this. So I got this question beforehand, so I don't know what the person actually meant by spirit guides. But when we're talking about that, in the notion in Ifa, it's not really a word as you say spirit guides. Most of the time, what I equate to as a spirit guide that most people call in like the Western sense of the word is really like your astral mates or your Egbe room. However, some people also say spirit guides and they're talking about like angels and things like that, which will be more equivalent to the Orisha. Either way, these are elemental forces, right, that are here to serve us, to protect us, to direct us, to guide us, to help us in different ways. Whereas earthbound spirits, they can't even help themselves. So they cannot truly help us because they're lost and they're not able to move forward. You're saying, how do I kick the spirit of a ghost out of my house? We're going to get to that. What are the signs my house has a ghost? We're going to get to all of those questions as well. Let's see. you're saying they will transition to heaven, but their spirit won't be at rest. Okay, so that's to answer your question, Samantha, about the earthbound spirits, like what actually happens if nobody helps them to transition. There, he's saying that they will eventually transition to Arun or heaven, but they won't be at rest. They still won't be in a good space until somebody actually helps them to elevate and get to that next level in their journey. So, this is why we're in a constant space of always working with our ancestral forces and helping them to elevate and, our bloodline and things like that. Because the more they do, the more we do. We also have to always think about the fact that when we transition, we might come back here as an ancestor return. That's why you want to live the best life possible, because you don't want to return into mess. Right? You want to live the best life that you possibly can. So when you do return to the earth, you'll return in a decent space. And so the same way you want your loved ones to help you to ascend, you want to help your lost loved ones do the same thing. Okay? Are hauntings just a manifestation of negative energy? This was another question that I got beforehand. So in Ifa, hauntings are not just negative energy. They are the active presence of restless spirits. All of the spirits aren't even negative, because it's like I said before, sometimes people transition through situations where they were not at fault. Somebody could have murdered them. They could have transitioned in an accident or just left here all of a sudden and just weren't prepared for that reality. That doesn't make them bad or negative energy, though the manifestation of their energy can seem to be negative or adverse, if you will. Okay, I have another question over here on IG. You said I submitted the question about the differences between earthbound spirit and ghost guides. Thank you for it. Oh, you are very, very welcome. Okay, so yes. And you're welcome as well, Samantha. Thank you, Awadissa, for that answer too. So causes and consequences of restless spirits. This was a lot of people have been asking about, right? So without those burial rites, the spirits of the deceased may linger on earth instead of joining the ancestors. Again, that's why we always want to do the burial rites and rituals for our loved ones. The energy of earthbound spirits can manifest in sickness among the living, confusion, repeated hardships, right? Especially if somebody in your bloodline, or if you're in a dwelling, like somebody maybe got murdered somewhere and you move into that space right out there and their spirit is still lingering in that space. They are going to wreak havoc. You're probably going to feel a lot of coldness. You may feel some negative energy. You may have some negative things. A lot of negative things go on in your life because you're in that dwelling space and their energy is not well. They're putting off like really negative, hard emotions because of what they're going through and they're lost and confused. And so, excuse me, guys. And so they're trying to get to where they need to be, and they're causing you problems, especially if they left here in a space of like anger or violence, something just not right? That energy is right there in their home. And so, or that space, wherever it may be. And so you're probably going to experience a lot of phenomena based on that reality. 1 second, guys. Sorry, this is such an interesting live. It has to be one of the most interesting ones here. Thank you. Yeah, it's a subject that I love. I used to love to read about or watch. Unsolved Mysteries was like my favorite show growing up. I still sometimes watch episodes of it when I catch it, like maybe on YouTube or another streaming platform or something like that. They had the series on Netflix for a minute, but they took it off. They have the new ones. I watched that, but it wasn't as good as the older guy. Was Robert Stack, right? I just love his voice and that whole demeanor. But yes, it was amazing. He's saying, can you show us an amulet you use to repel bad spirits? That would be super interesting. So pretty much anything you use. I have one of these Lakis right now. right? So this is for Ogun, who is my head Orisha, but he's a warrior energy. So Elekis can help you. They're not amulets in the same sense as like a form of a kosher or spiritual medicine, but they can absolutely help you to ward off evil spirits. Anytime I go out, I wear some kind of charm or what have you. And I have a few, quite a few on right now, but I don't have my Isura right here with me. So that would require me to go in a whole nother room. So I can't show you that at present. But you can absolutely use those particular dynamics in order to ward off evil spirits, negative energy, and things like that. Love you guys too. Thank you so much, REM. So you're saying, Hidden Beauty, what ritual will you need to be performing in order for the unbalanced soul to transition? We're going to get to that as well. I'm not going to get into the specifics of what happens in the ritual, but the type of rituals, yes, I'm going to get into that. Okay, so those spirits can absolutely cause you issues. Greeting sound goes, right? I gotta put this on. Greeting sound goes. You came in at the perfect live screen. Okay. Let's see. So going back to it, what warning signs suggest that somebody is living with spiritual contamination from a ghost, an earthbound spirit, or something like that? So if you're dealing with persistent nightmares, any type of unexplained illness, household disturbances, flickering lights, moving things, they get a lot of it, right? In those types of scary shows or what have you. It's just that they sensationalize it and they make it look evil and well, it probably is scary, I'm sure, to the people who are going through those dynamics, but they're not positioning the storyline in the space that these spirits need to be helped. They need to be elevated, and so that they can be well and we can be well. Instead, it's just this ghostly phenomenon, and people are getting murdered, and all this extra stuff is going on, which is not good to portray it in that way. But there are so many different things. The only way you know for sure is through divination. Obviously, in the tradition, we do Ifa divination, and I'm going to get more into that later on as well, because it could be other forces that are causing you disturbances. It's not always an earthbound spirit. That's why you have to check. Okay, they can also block your blessings, right? Create so many so many struggles until their lineage restores balance. So you're gonna elevate them. I'll talk about how we do that in E5 because there's ritual work that I believe in that works best. I personally, which is a good question, I just don't. There's a lot of other things people say about, different elevation rituals that you do on your own, right? In different spiritual systems. For me personally, I believe that needs to be done with blood for something like that. That means an animal sacrifice, not something that you do on your own. For anybody who is listening and thinking that you want to go through somebody who is trained, who can actually help you with that type of elevation work. You're saying thank you for showing us your Lakis. Oh, you're very, very welcome, son of a Koshi. Okay. Ashe, oh Ashe. All right. So if ignored, their unrest can deepen into generational misfortune, especially if this is a family line issue. If you got some earthbound spirits in your family line that have not transitioned yet, you definitely want to help them to elevate. Again, that's just, to me, that's just a normal part of, okay, somebody in my family line leaves here, I'm going to automatically do the work to make sure that they get to their next level. So that way I don't even have to worry about, oh, are they, in a good space or not, or what have you. You saying, is there something you can do? Is what something that you can do? I don't understand the question. SB 25th Street. You're saying, so animal sacrifice to elevate them instead of kicking them out. I mean, how are you going to kick them out, right? You can tell them to leave. Are they going to leave? Likely not on their own, right? So that's how we do it in tradition. I believe in traditional practice. I absolutely believe in, like the animal sacrifice. That's the life force, and that's what helps them. That's what helps to work energy and to balance energy out quicker. There are other types of offerings that go along in that process, so it's not just the animals. It could be cooked food. It could be what else I would just do we give during those particular elevation rituals. I can't think of everything, but there are other items, spiritual stuff that you can utilize in that process. But it's a sacred process that happens. You said that a person shouldn't do sacrifice without the proper training. So is there something that are you saying it's something that I can do personally, or are you saying it's something that like somebody can go and get training and do it on their own? So the question is, if it's something that I do, the answer to that is no. So I work with a trained, experienced Babalawo out of Nigeria who does all ritual work through Asanee 44. He's on the call. I hope he's still on the call right now with us. And he does those types of things. I don't do blood sacrifices and offerings. No, I don't touch blood, so I don't really like it. So that's not my thing. I wouldn't even do that for myself. So yes, but I do absolutely believe in it, and I 100% am grateful for the people who do it on my behalf. Absolutely. Okay, so can earthbound spirits ever act as protectors, or are they always disruptive? So these forces are disruptive forces. I'm not saying that they can't protect you at all, but like that's not their overriding goal, and it's not their overriding energy. All right, because they're unsettled, they're disturbed, they're likely going to disturb you. Okay, so I wouldn't count on them helping you. True protection comes from our ancestral lineage. That's what you guys were talking about before with the Egungun and things like that. These are forces that are in the rightful place, and they're good to go, and they help us all the time, and they help us so much more when we elevate them and we work with them and we give offerings and things like that to them. You said white flowers, white candles help to elevate, and it's things you can do at home. It's minor yourself until you get a babalawo. I get what you're saying. That's not my belief. That it you to me that's more so ancestral veneration, which means that you are venerating the people that are already there to help you. I don't believe that you can elevate earthbound spirit or something like that, or what we call a ghost, through offerings such as white flowers and candles and things like that. I'm not saying it can't be done. That's just not part of my personal belief system. You're saying, I truly hope there's a Babalawo watching this live any hour in here, because we do need some certified guidance. So I am everything I'm speaking on is through the guidance of a Babalawo, and my Babalawo is absolutely here in the live screen. So let's see. You said, yes, I love Unsolved Mysteries. I used to watch it a lot when I was younger. Watch ID Discovery Channel a lot. Sign that I am on the right. Yes, I used to love it too. I still, if I can catch some, especially love the ghostly stories when they had all this phenomenon, things moving around and spontaneous combustions and stuff like that. Right? I love that. Okay, so spirit possession and attachment. All right, spirit possession, that's when a force comes in and it takes over you and it starts to act through you in not so great ways, right? Is when you are controlled by that force. Usually it's, temporarily. There are some cases where it can be long term. Hopefully, that reality does not occur, but it can. All right. So you don't want that to happen. at all. You don't want a spirit to come in and possess a place, a person, or what have you, because it's never going to be a good thing. When it comes to ritualism and things like that, spiritualism and things like that, there are situations where a person can be possessed intentionally on purpose, right? And this is actually considered a sacred process in Ifa and so many other traditions or religions or what have you. But this is done through somebody who has the proper training to do so. This is not just going in and saying that, I want this spirit to come and take over me, or I want this spirit to just come and inhabit my space. You don't ever want to invite spirits that you don't understand their essence, their signature into your space, and definitely not to come inside of you in any way, shape, or form. But in tradition, this is a common thing. It absolutely happens. It happens a lot, quite frequently, especially in traditions like voodoo, right? Where somebody is like mounted and they call the person a horse or what have you. In those situations, that is a very controlled process. People know what they're doing. They've been trained in that process. There are other people around to make sure that the outcome is good. Okay, that the spirit dismounts the person properly, and so many other things happen. But in cases of involuntary possession, an uninvited spirit seizes that person. They seize control of the person, their body, their mind, causing so much disruption. Again, you don't want that. Do you have to be initiated to get work done? No, you do not. Absolutely not. Initiation is more so a process for you to elevate and grow and get to the next level of your journey. It is not something that you have to wait to integrate into certain aspects of Ifa to do. There's so many people who don't even practice Ifa who get spiritual work done all of the time with us specifically, that they don't practice, but they'll come, they're dealing with a problem, they get the work done, they go back to whatever they're doing. They never left what they're doing at the end of the day, right? So they continue to practice Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, whatever it may be. There's no judgment about that. It doesn't require initiation. Now, it does require initiation to understand, like what we were talking about, how to do some of this elevation work and things like that, because you get that type of knowledge as you elevate and you become a trained priest or priestess or something of that nature. Okay. The signs that you are possessed, did I cover that already? If I didn't, I'm going to get to it, right? But definitely some of the similar signs that we talked about before. It is. Yeah, I'm going to get to it shortly. Okay, so involuntary possession can occur when a person is open as well, because this was another question, like how is it that somebody can become possessed or what have you. So a lot of that happens through the activity that you do in the way that you live your life. All right, if you're intaking like a lot of drugs and alcohol and things like that, you are opening yourself up to a completely new level. Okay, inordinate sexual activity, so things that are out of the ordinary that you shouldn't be doing, and you're allowing yourself to be penetrated, or you are penetrating someone else in a space that's not meant for sexual penetration, things like that. Definitely engaging in behaviors where you are abusing someone sexually, whether it be a child or even an adult, rape and things like that. Somebody participating in evil spell work all the time, like they are consistently doing different types of work that integrates malevolent spell work that they should not be involved in. Okay. Involuntary possession requires cleansing or even so ritual intervention. intervention. This is some of the things that you've been asking about. We're going to get deeper into that as well. But you're going to have to do certain ritual work. A lot of times you're going to have to take a crochet to get rid of it fully. A crochet is spiritual medicine for anybody who may not be familiar with that. This is on another level because we got to get rid of so many things that are going on with those spiritual forces that are coming to wreak havoc in our lives. Okay. Um, let's see. So when I think I covered this, but I'll say it again because somebody might have missed it. So in Ifa and other African traditions, voluntary possession is embraced, right? It's something that we actually look forward to. This plan is part of the process because when somebody becomes possessed in the tradition, they actually do so for healing purposes. The spirit comes in and it'll come through and, bring information, guidance, and things like that to help a person to heal in various ways. All right. Involuntary possession is not something that you want. It is considered to be a haunting or a form of oppression that you want to overcome as quickly as possible. What signs indicate that a person or a place may have a spirit attached to them? So I think you asked this before, REM, RME. So sudden mood changes, fatigue, persistent misfortune, things like that. Those are all signals of a spirit being attached to a person, especially a lot of the physical symptoms. You might be depressed all the time. You might be just tired all the time, want to sleep. If you are constantly sleepy and tired and there's no physical reason attached to it, like, sometimes that happens, especially a person is pregnant or they're going through certain things. It can happen during perimenopause. So, different conditions in women, even when they're about to start their cycle and stuff like that, it can be common that a woman is sleepy. But especially when her cycle is on, because spirits are attracted to blood. So it can also indicate that some kind of spiritual force is present. So you definitely want to check those things if you're experiencing different physical symptoms that have no cause or root to it, right? You're going to the doctor and things like that, and they're not coming up with an answer to what's going on with you. You want to get some checkings done. Homes, lands, other environments can absolutely feel heavy or unsafe. Just like you see in the horror movies and things like that. That phenomenon can absolutely occur. You can see things moving out of the corner of your eye. You just feel like a presence. It can feel cold. It can feel heavy, dark, right? Things like that. So you definitely want to be mindful when you're experiencing these types of phenomena. Constant misfortune, people having accidents in a particular place. Especially if you got like a roadway or something, it's just like constant accidents in that area, and it doesn't make sense. Like everything is positioned well. It's not like an area where things should be happening of that nature. It's a clear space, but it's just a lot of accidents that constantly go on there. That could be the presence of some kind of unsettled force or spirit at play. Okay. You're saying this would go into the same thing as possession, right? Absolutely. They're one and the same. When you either possessed or you have a spirit attached to you, or it's a haunting, even if the spirit isn't attached to you specifically, it could just be attached to that particular place. If you ignore these things, guys, you can absolutely drain your health, block your blessings. You can create lasting hardship for yourself, for your family. So it's not something that you want to just ignore by any means necessary. You want to try your best to get to this. And that even, it reminds me, as I was talking about this, it reminds me of the case in Japan, right? It was a situation where it was a lot of people coming back. I think it was 2011. It was like an earthquake and a tsunami that happened, and all of a sudden, a lot of people were drowned and they were killed. And then after it was over and people tried to get back to regular life, a lot of cab drivers were claiming that people were coming and getting in their cabs, and they would have them take them to these areas that was like deserted or what have you, or just ramsacked by the earthquake. And then the cab driver would look back, and it was nobody in the car. They were gone. These were those spirits that were unsettled. They had no idea that they were even gone. And so they were trying to get back home, not realizing that they had left. And there was a lot of cleansing work that had to be done in that area because people were seeing this for years after this event. Go look it up, guys, if you haven't heard about it. Before I saw this years ago, it was I think it was on Netflix or something, where they had a documentary and like all of these spiritual forces were coming back and they were just like all over the place because those spirits were unsettled, absolutely unsettled. Can children be more vulnerable to spirit possession in Ifa beliefs? This is another question that I got. Absolutely. So children, of course, they are closer to the spiritual realm because they just left there, right? As they're more susceptible to spiritual phenomenon and just receiving it. They haven't been taught that this isn't real. They haven't been taught to think about these things in a specific way. So they are definitely more open, especially if they are left unprotected. So you definitely want to protect your children as much as possible whenever they come out of the womb, right? You want to protect them throughout their life, but babies especially are just more vulnerable. Now, I got a few questions about like children and EBQ. And we're going to talk about this because these phenomena occur, but they're not the exact same thing. So we're talking about a restless child spirit. We're talking about unsettled souls that have never transitioned, right? When we're talking about EBQ, these are spirits that are destined to cycle between birth and death. They just keep coming back and forth, okay? These particular spirits are children who are believed to die young, return repeatedly through birth and death. A lot of times you'll see this in family lines where they keep having like repeat miscarriages or what have you. These are said to be often thought of the children just keep coming back, but they never live a full life. They may have children that are born with maybe unusual birthmarks or particular health challenges at birth or in their younger ages, right? These usually signal these types of spirit. So when we're talking about the ubiquitous spirits, this literally means born to die in the Yoruba cosmology. So they belong to a specific group of spirits that aren't fully committed to staying here on the earth. Right? There are things that you can do in order to stop that phenomenon from happening. Obviously, rituals. There are certain markings that they put on the children to identify when they return back. Certain names that children are given to ensure that they stay when they do come back again to the earth. Amulets, protection, and things like that are performed and given to persuade the spirits to remain right here on the earth so that they can fulfill their destiny and live out their life as long as possible. So now we are going to look at Ouija boards. You guys were asking about before. Ouija boards, seances versus what we do in Ifa tradition, okay? Because it's different. So some people are asking, like, what's the difference between that Ouija board and the Ifa divination tray, right? The Okun Ifa board, all right? So when we're talking about the divination tray that is used in Ifa, yes, it's round, just like, the Ouija board or what. Well, the Ouija board isn't round, right? It's square. Am I right? Somebody tell me if I'm right about that. I think the Ouija boards are square. But either way, the Okun board, this is a consecrated wooden object that is used by a Babalawo or an Iyanifa during the divination process. This is a ritually prepared tool that serves as a channel between Orunmila to communicate with us during the divination process. So it's Orunmila, who is oftentimes referred to as Ifa, This is one force, right? This is one force that you are speaking to in order to get information about your destiny. So every aspect of using the Ifa divination tray is tied to lineage, ritual order, and strict taboos surrounding how that device is used and can be used, who can use it, or what have you. Matter of fact, there are some um I wore this one. There are some trays that are square too, right? Or rectangular, I think. Am I wrong about that? Because I'm used to seeing just the rounded divination trays. So again, the purpose when you're in Ifa divination as a whole, it is not to just call on random unknown spirits and invite them into your space and just say, come and tell me what your name is and tell me what I need to know, this type of thing that you see when people work with the Ouija board, right? Instead, it is to receive divine guidance by a Rumula, all right, the custodian of wisdom. This is the force that witnessed us when we chose our destiny. So that force knows where we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to be doing. That is who they're communicating with when they do Ifa divination. All right. Now, um, you're saying it mostly comes in round shape, but some in rectangular shape. Thank you. That's what I thought was the case. Is that it was rectangular. I'm referring to the Ifa divination. The Ifa divination board is mostly round, is what he's saying, and sometimes it can be rectangular. But you're right, with the Ouija boards, they are rectangular. Yeah, I had to think about it. It's been a long time. The only time I even see a Ouija board is like on television or something like that. Like, it's not something that I see frequently at all because I really don't watch scary movies, as I said before. You said, can you get Ifa divination without being initiated? Absolutely. Absolutely. People get Ifa readings all the time without being initiated. That's like part of even the process of, getting initiated, because you are going to get different reading. You have to, matter of fact, before you even get initiated, you have to absolutely get an Ifa reading in order for that to happen, so that so that they know rather what to do during the process for you specifically. What shape? Okay, I was talking about the shapes of the divination board. So the Ifa divination board is round for the most part. Some are rectangular, right? And some with the Ouija board. Are you saying, Shannon, that you had a rounded? Are you talking about the Ouija board here? Or are you talking about Ifa divination tray? Elekis, no, Elekis are these. No, we're talking about the divination board, what they use in order to do divination in Ifa. So, yes, going back to what I was saying. So, um, to get a reading, how can I get a reading to start the process? So we do readings at Asanee 44. You can definitely check us out on the website. If you need, I think, so you're on Instagram. On Instagram, there should be a link in my bio that you can click on. It's like Asanee 44 slash sunny44.com/IFA. You can go directly there and it'll walk you through the process of getting an IFA reading there. I think that's the first thing on that page. So let's see. Ouija, but you're talking about the piece that moved. Yeah, so you're talking about, like, yeah, I think that's in different shapes. But I think the board is 9 times out of 10. I don't know. Are there round Ouija boards? Now I gotta look this up, because now it's a lot of questions about this for me personally, because it's been a long time. Like I said, it was even back in the day that I even saw Ouija boards and stuff like that, because some of my family members used to watch movies and talk about this phenomenon. Oh, you're welcome, Hidden Beauty. But you're saying it's rectangular, Sam. Thank you for that, guys. Okay, so, but a Ouija board is a commercial device, right? Not to say that it doesn't have real implications, because it does. I've heard many of stories about people having not so great experiences with those boards, real life stories, not just like the movies and stuff like that, right? Or TikTok and all of that nowadays. So, but it was based on a parlor game, right? People started working with it, trying to call back dead forces and things like that, right? And they go and put the planchet. That's what you call the little planchet. They put their hand on it, and it's supposed to like move and spell the different letters based on what the person is saying. The dead person is coming back. They're spelling out something and telling them where something is, or their name, or whatever the situation may be, right? That's how that particular device works, right? It's attributed to dead spirits coming back, talking through that particular board. It is not this one force like I just talked about with the Ifa divination process. Ifa divination, you're only talking to a Romula, all right? The Ouija boards are not consecrated devices. They don't go through all of the protection and get the divine authority, the ritual safeguards, and all of that are not put on Ouija boards. You can just go right now if you want to and buy one out of the store or offline, because I'm pretty sure they got plenty of them around right now, especially in stores, the Halloween stores and stuff like that, because we're getting closer to that time frame right now. These particular boards invite completely undefined spirits into your space. All right. So many traditions like Ifa consider them to be dangerous, because if you do not know about spiritual communication and you just start talking to any given spirit and inviting them into your space, you can have such a hard time. Even if you're calling sometimes on spirits that are good or benevolent spirits, but you don't understand the signature of that spirit, and you go and you try to call those spirits into your space based on something you read offline, and you're just going to try to do it yourself. Some people are asking before, like, can you go and do like the rituals and the blood sacrifices and stuff like that on your own? If you're not trained in the process, you should not do that on your own at all, because that can cause so many different problems, right? I don't even suggest laying out food offerings, non-life force offerings, if you don't know what you're doing. You have to be careful with that process, because it can be very, very dangerous, because you can attract earthbound spirits or even other deceptive spirits, the Egungun, right? Those are evil forces. You can attract those into your environment, and you got a whole lot more problems than you set out to have from the door. Okay. Okay, so let's see. You said you worked with an Ouija board over 20 years ago. It scared me so bad we drove over 30 miles to throw it in the trash. I would not recommend anyone who is untrained to use it. I agree. What kind of experience did you have from it, if you don't mind sharing with us? What scared you about it? Dowsing rods. Yeah, this is an interesting question, right? I've used them. To me, they're not accurate. I just have not had the best experience as far as accuracy of them. Like, I could get it, I could pick up one and boom, it does its thing. But to me, I just don't experience the are you talking about pendulums? Maybe I'm saying the wrong thing. Are we talking about pendulums? Is that the same thing? Or dowsing rods something different? Maybe I'm getting that confused, but I'm talking about pendulums here. I've used the pendulum, picked it up. I can pick up a pendulum right now. It's going to start moving. I don't care where I get it from, right? And I can ask a question, and I'm going to get all the correct answers first. Is my name this? Do I live here? So forth and so on. It's going to give me the right answer. But eventually it's going to start giving me the wrong answer. So I just don't trust that phenomenon personally. You're saying dowsing rods, they're similar. So no, I haven't used those, but I have used the pendulums, and they don't work for me personally, I'm not saying that they're not good to use. I know a lot of people who do use them who are into spiritualism, and they, claim to have success from them. Just has not been my experience personally. Alrighty, so let's see. Greetings, guys. You're saying, well, you're welcome. You're very welcome. Yes. REM, you have a question? Let us know what that is. So, how is transitioning to seances and things like that, spirit channeling, so forth and so on? How is Ifa divination different than that phenomena? So when we're talking about a seance, we're talking about people gathering in a group, calling for spirits through different channeling mechanisms. They could use a Ouija board, but that's not the only way that people do seances. Okay, so Ifa divination is a structured system led by Babalawo, Yanifa, utilizing those tools that we talked about before, with the Opon board, the Opele, the Ikin, and some other devices. I can't think of all of them right now. But you're going to use specific devices that have been consecrated and they have been used for generations upon generations upon generations. That's the only thing that they use in that process. All right, they don't use other things. But in the summoning of, what do you call it? It does not summon spirits, but it receives messages through Oromila specifically. Let me take this question before they disappear. I don't know what question you're referring to, Faye. Maybe you have to ask it again because I don't know which specific question that you're referring to. Okay, you're asking, do you got a Babalawo to give a reading? Absolutely. So I work with a trained Babalawo, Babalawo Ifa Kunli Adisa. He's listed on the website. And yeah, so anything I say, it comes through him. I teach, I work under the auspices of Babalawo Ifa Kunli Adisa, who is in Oyo State, Nigeria right now. And he should still be on the call as we speak, but he always joins our live screens. If the Nigerian network allows him to, he stays the whole time. Are you still here, our Adisa? Let's see. Yes, I said it doesn't summon spirits. Sorry about that, guys. I got off track. So a seance is typically a gathering where people attempt to basically communicate with the dead. As I said before, they can use it through a medium, somebody who's like a psychic, and they can just pull information, different channelers, spirit guides, things like that. Sometimes it's with a person who works with one particular spirit, but their goal is to call in the dead so that they can communicate with them. All right. So this can be in different ways, right? So this can be done in a situation, like I said, through a Ouija board, but it can be done through other tools or devices, just depending on how it's set up. So they can be very much so unregulated and informal, but some do also adhere to ritualistic structures and different belief frameworks and systems. They use consecrated tools sometimes. It just depends. If you're considering that, you definitely want to ask about how it's done to make a resolute decision for yourself as far as if that's something that you desire to have done or not. If you want to bring back, you want to go and talk to specific spirits from your bloodline, right? Okay, he's here. So thank you. Yes, if Babalawo Ifakuni is still with us, he joins us on every session. For those of you all who are new to our channel, our live stream setup. So you're saying, I appreciate you guys for clarifying this with me because I am new. Clearly, I have a lot to learn. We are all learning all the time. This is just a process. No matter how advanced you are, you still got a lot to learn because it is so much infinite wisdom and information. You didn't get the memo earlier about what hidden beauty. Sorry if you answered this already. How does Ifa view the use of tarot cards? So I did not answer this, and this is a really good question. So there's nothing wrong with using tarot cards in the tradition. It depends on how you're using them, right? So if you're working off of tarot cards and you're working with your own intuition, which will ultimately be your aura, is perfectly fine. Now, if you're working with tarot cards and you're summoning evil forces, you're trying to work with evil spirits to bring about information and knowledge and wisdom, that's not a good thing at all. But tarot cards are really, really common, even so in traditions like voodoo. I should say cards. I won't say tarot cards. Actually, playing cards are more common in voodoo when they get the messages from the Lua, which are basically the same archetypal energy as the Orisha. So a lot of people communicate with them through the cards in the voodoo tradition. And now they're starting to use the tarot cards more because they're becoming more popular worldwide. So you're saying you came off awkward in my responses. Okay, it's no problem whatsoever. You're saying, so the majority of my life, I've been drawn to spiritual realm of the past. But then I've been following trails that led me to Ifa. How do I get confirmation that I'm following signs correctly? Ifa divination. All right, that's the best way. You can get an Ifa reading to see, what is this for me? Should I be going down this path? People do that all the time to see if this is what they are meant to do. You are good, Shannon. I appreciate your questions. I truly do. Absolutely. Here. Okay, so I'm going to, let's see. Sorry about this, guys. Hey, I can't. I was trying to navigate something on IG. I can't do it right now. But anyway, sorry about that. I'll get back with it shortly. So getting back to what I was saying. So we talked about the ritual beliefs and frameworks. Many historical cases demonstrate that the seances often involve trickery, including like the materialism of props, hidden compartments. So of course, we know that those particular devices are not always sound. And that goes for really any system of divination. You just have to try to get understanding of it and making sure that you're connecting with the right people. That's why I always say, start working with your ancestors, connect with your aura, things like that. So that way, if you're traveling down the right path when it comes to these particular nuances or what have you. You're saying what's Oshun? Oshun is a spirit in the Ifa tradition, and Orisha rather. In the Ifa tradition, elemental force, she governs love and beauty and all of those amazing things. I do have some content about Oshun on my website, so you can take a look there. I don't want to get into that topic here because it's not really part of the conversation. Because there are spirits that we are calling on that may be unknown, unverified, and so much other stuff, right? You definitely don't want to risk being deceived when you go out and you're trying to work with spirits on your own and you're not trained in the process and you do not understand the process as you should. So you're very welcome, Kenya. All right. This is my last section, guys. So definitely put your comments, your questions, your concerns in here. So when we get ready to transition out, I will hopefully have gotten to everybody's questions and concerns by then, right? Or comments, statements, whatever it may be. So diagnosis remedies for earthbound spirits that you guys have been asking about. So dreams, visions, and other forms of spiritual communication can reveal whether you are dealing with ancestral forces or restless spirits. So you might see certain things in your dreams, visions, or what have you. As I said before, to confirm, you always want to check with Ifa if you're working with the Ifa tradition, or you can work with another tradition if that's your thing. But I would always say confirm. When it comes to Ifa, we do divination or either a spiritual investigation to determine who is communicating with you and if it's a what to do either way about the communication, because even if it's an ancestral force, they're contacting you for a reason as well. It's usually to feed them so that they can, protect you or show you something or what have you. In Ifa, the remedies for earthbound spirits, like we talked about before, we're going to do sacrifices and elevation rituals to help those spirits to ascend. And this is a sacred process, and I'm definitely not going to walk you guys through each and every step of that particular process, but it involves life force offering. So you are absolutely going to do animal sacrifice when it comes to that particular dynamic. You're also going to give other things, incantations, chanting, things of that nature will also happen when it comes to Ifa and everything. So you definitely want to go through that process. As I said before, if you do it just from the door, it's going to be beneficial for you. Okay. Let's see. So what rituals ensure that a person does not become earthbound, after death? So proper burial rites, guys. You definitely want to go through that phase, that process. If it's just a normal transitioning of a person, they're just regular rites that you do. As I said before, if the person belonged to a secret society or something like that, you will need to consult with their process or whoever they were working with, whatever group that they were part of, in order to understand what rites and rituals need to be done according to that society that they belong to. Okay, so you said this Q&A has been so informative and helpful to my Ifa journey. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you for showing up as always, always, always. All righty. Beautiful, guys. So, yes. What protections exist in Ifa, right, against harmful or lingering spirits? So, guys, you asked about that before. So, you definitely want to do the above. There are certain cleansing rituals that you may need to do based on your particular situation. A crochet is going to be very important. It's the spiritual medicine, as I said before. The amulets there and charms, you can always do the lekis somebody asked about earlier. You can wear lekis if you desire to do so. They're not necessarily designed specifically for what we're talking about here, like earthbound spirits, ghosts, and things like that. However, they still can provide you with a level of protection. For that, you want to get the higher level charms and things of that nature, like the Isora, etc., to protect you on a regular basis, especially if you are constantly dealing with this type of phenomenon. Somebody like maybe who works like at a graveyard or a cemetery or something like that, I would definitely be protecting myself, because you're always going into a space where you're dealing with spirits that are dwelling and lingering and moving about. So you definitely want to protect yourself at all costs. Okay. Let's see. You're saying thank you, love you, love you guys too. You're very, very welcome. Very welcome. Let's see. I'm getting some phenomenon on IG. I'm trying to figure out if the questions are for me or not, or what's going on. But I think you guys are talking amongst each other. What's the difference between ancestral veneration and spirit appeasement? So we got into this earlier. Somebody mentioned like the white candles and flowers. To me, that's more on the level of ancestor veneration, and you can and should be venerating your ancestors on a regular basis. However, to elevate your ancestors, according to Ifa, we are and elevate your ancestors or any deceased force for that matter, you are going to use animal sacrifices, life force offerings in order to help them to ascend, plus other ritual elements based on that particular process or protocol. All right. Egungun festivals, what role do they play in balancing out the dead? So, as many of you all know, the Egungun, those are the ancestral masquerades that we use in the Ifa tradition in order to connect with those spiritual forces of our lineage. They come through to bring forth messages to help us to have balance, harmony, to strengthen us, right? To bring forth that connection between the living and the astral realm, the living, what am I trying to say? The physical realm and the astral realm, so that we can connect and get that wisdom that we need, and we can help them with whatever they need in their journey. So that's all I do have for you guys. If you are absolutely ready to align and to transcend, to transform, not transcend, but to transform your destiny to get to that space where you want to be, definitely check us out on the Asanee 44 website. Few of you all ask about Ifa divination. You can definitely find it on the website. You can also find it here on the YouTube channel for those of you all who are here. And next week's episode, we are going to talk about burial rites, reincarnation in the Ifa tradition. So it kind of tags along with this conversation so that you can understand more about the ancestor elevation and connections and things of that nature, and what you need to do when you have a departed loved one. So if I don't have any more questions, I'm going to go ahead and close out here. As always, Ashe, please have a very blessed and beautiful day, guys, and beyond.